Module 8. Timelines and Planning. The project manager, or external manufacturing lead, will need to bring together everything that we've discussed into a time-based plan that can be executed. Ray Season is managing partner for SCX CMC. He discusses development budgets, hiring, and other best practices based on his work with over 75 different clients, many of which were seed stage or startup biotech companies. And while the talk is aimed at early stage biotechs, the principles he discusses are applicable to anyone putting together a timeline for drug product development.
My name is Ray Season. I am the managing partner for SCX CMC. This is a company that I started last year with Kevin Biddorf, but since 2011, I've worked with over 75 different clients, many of which were seed stage or startup biotech companies. And so this is a compilation of a couple key observations and best practices that I've come up with over the years. Let's start with the business plan or the pitch deck. I've worked on several different pitch decks, many more than that. And there's always an integrated development timeline. This is something that typically I will be responsible for putting together, at least for the formulation development, CTM manufacturing, and CMC activities. We talk about budget and timeline. And just like any other timeline, typically you start at the end and you work backwards. In this case, it was a 35-month project, and we wanted to identify the key deliverables, that being the pre-IND meeting, trial initiation of trials, NDA, and FDA approvals. So you see that at the bottom there. And then, of course, they wanted to know how much we had budgeted for each section. So using this sort of as a blueprint, we would do the same thing for the first 90 days. Let's talk about the first 90 days after receiving funded, where the goal is to get to this red line here, this red arrow, that talks about the CDMO kickoff meeting, right? So since we're focusing on CMC and drug product development, getting to that CDMO kickoff meeting represents that true transition from planning to execution. So, what will it take to make good on this development timeline? The funding's in. Now what? First point I want to make is, here's a great time to review and update your living documents. And while there's several, the ones I want to focus on today would be the target product profile and the drug product strategy. These are two things that will inform many of the other things that happen. Second, we're going to want to build and onboard a team. And third, we're going to negotiate and execute the proposals. Maybe there were high-level proposals that we got as we were doing the budgetary planning. Now we want to go back and renegotiate and execute proposals based on the updated target product profile and the drug product development strategy that we will develop in conjunction with our new onboarded subject matter expertise. Again, the goal is to get to the number 5, the CDMO kickoff meeting. Okay, in the context of living documents and reviewing living documents, let's talk about the target product profile and its impact on strategy and budget. In my opinion, the target product profile exercise is not formalized and done frequently enough at biotech companies. Even though it might be done early on, I think that we sort of like calcify into a certain strategy and we don't seem to come back and review it enough. And in doing so, we forego an opportunity to streamline and save money or prevent us from moving forward quickly when we go to commercialization. So in my opinion, you need to have everybody sitting at the table to have a fulsome discussion on the target product profile. In other words, what each discipline requires from the drug product in its characteristics, description, or performance in order to meet the requirements for that discipline. What are those disciplines? Here's an example. Clinical, quality, your marketing group, regulatory, of course, your scale-up and processing and supply chain folks, in addition to you as the formulator. So there are a lot of different opinions might not have the same outlook as you do as a formulator, but their requirements impact and inform how you design the dosage form. And once you have that dosage form and the target product profile defined, now we can talk about drug product development strategy. And again, if we don't come back to revisit this often enough and it becomes a fixed and static strategy, we will not be able to take advantage of shortcuts, loopholes, or best practices as they arise. In this example, I've got three different things: the technical complexity, low or high. Obviously, as we go to the right, the budget and the complexity is going to get higher. Exit strategy: the longer you do the development, the more work that you have to do, obviously, the more budget you're going to burn through. And then a more important one, actually more recently important, is the accelerated review and fast track. More oncology and gene and cell therapy drugs, cell and gene therapy drugs are being evaluated on a fast track. And that typically means you need a formulation that is more commercial ready than traditionally developed products. And it robs you of some opportunities to find some streamlining activities on the front end, but it saves you time and risk on the back end as you're trying to commercialize and make those PDUFA and make those marketing dates. So the question, as a takeaway here, does budget drive strategy or does strategy drive budget? Well, the answer is budget drives strategy until it doesn't. In drug product development, you've got competing priorities from CMC, clinical, regulatory, and the business and the budget. And for those reasons, there's a healthy friction among these different disciplines. And as a developer, you have to have the flexibility and I guess the foresight to know which battles you have to fight. And for a highly technical project, you do need to dig your heels in and get the information, the data, and run the experiments as needed. Okay, so let's talk about team building. In going from an organization of, let's say, 2 or 3 or a handful of people to an organization that can manage multiple CDMOs, let's talk about drug substance, drug product, analytical testing, packaging, logistics, compliance. We talked about this before. There's a lot of different disciplines under CMC. And so you're going to need to build a team. So first step, know what you're great at. Know where, as an organization, your gaps or your weaknesses lie. Know what functionalities need to be, are required to be in-house, and which ones would create more value if outsourced or delegated. So with that in mind, let's talk about 3 different topics with people and hiring. We have specialists and we have generalists, right? As a small company, it would be great if everybody could do everything. Yet somehow, especially I would recommend when you're developing strategy, you probably want something higher level that has a good feel and the experience in early stage drug development to know where the best practices, the loopholes are, where the shortcuts can be taken, what can be streamlined. So you're only doing what's essential early on versus later on. Versus generalists, which you're going to need on a day-to-day basis, boots on the ground to get the job done, to move the project forward. So 2 different types of things. Find the right balance. Who are you going to have in-house, and who can you delegate? What can you delegate to a consultant? And so think about the trade-offs from that. Consultants can come and go. They might be more expensive on an hourly basis, but on the long run, in terms of taxes and benefits, etc., employees are much more expensive. And then now we're looking at on-site versus remote. Do your resources have to be on-site, or can they be working remote? And how does that impact your budget in terms of office space, equipment, etc.? Remember that drug product development is a team exercise. Think about putting together a team. Think about leadership of that team. Think about the processes and the communication and the governance that is required to manage that team. And ultimately, what's it we're trying to do? We're trying to leverage the CDMO, the technology of the CDMO in a platform that is virtual manufacturing, virtual R&D. Thank you very much, everybody, for sticking around up till now. Let's wrap up. For starters, startup biotech who are transitioning from fundraising to initiating drug product development. For those guys, getting to the kickoff meeting with a qualified and capable CDMO as quickly as possible is the goal. Moving from planning stages to execution requires finalizing key documents such as the TPP and the drug product development strategy in order to update RFPs, proposals, and contracts that we need to put in place with CDMOs. Next, the drug product development strategy will have a significant impact on the overall CMC budget and timing of spend. So spend a lot of time on your strategy, developing the strategy and making sure that it's fit for purpose for your project and the commitments you've made to your investors. And finally, working with CDMOs will require a team of talented cross-functional SMEs and support staff working together with the CDMO towards common goals and objectives. Monitor budgets on CDMOs frequently as programs evolve, and strive to provide adequate resources to manage the CDMOs themselves. Thank you very much. I look forward to your questions.
Now take the short quiz to test your learning.